This is Dr. Justin Dorenzo. I'd like to welcome you back to your anger management training class. This is session 4. Today we're going to talk about the aggression cycle and also give you another strategy entitled muscle relaxation or progressive muscle relaxation. So first let's talk about your homework and also review and reflect about what we learned about during session 3. We talked about coming up with an anger control plan as a basic tool for you. We came up with timeout, talked about talking to a trustworthy friend, and also a relaxation exercise, specifically deep breathing. And again, just to remind you, deep breathing is used to reduce the nervous system's stress response. So let's think about our homework as well. So if you pull it up and review, and let's think about what number we reached on our anger meter, the highest number that we reached over the past week, and let's think about what specific events led to this. And then also let's try and remember what cues we experienced or felt that led to this as well. And let's try to state one or two from each of the 4 categories of cues that led to each of these events. And then I also want you to think about what kind of technique that you did try to use in order to control your anger. Again, we talked about this chart at the beginning of the last session, and this is how I want you to, this is the sequence of how I want you to think when you are not only planning for a strategy or planning to use a certain strategy, but also when an event happens. I want you to work on more bodily and psychological awareness. So, begin to think of your anger as a sequence of events. This will allow you to be more rational and less emotional in dealing with stressful events, your cues, and implementing your chosen strategy. You are well on your way to having an effective plan if utilized in dealing with your anger. So I do want you to, when something happens, be aware of the cues and be aware of what strategy you need to use. So let's first talk about the aggression cycle. Okay? So far in this program we've learned about the anger meter, the 4 different cues to anger, and the anger control plan. It's important that all of these concepts are understood because they will be utilized to break the aggression cycle. So there are 3 phases of the aggression cycle. You have the escalation phase, the explosion phase, and then the post-explosion phase. So if we look at the chart here, we see that the escalation phase is where things begin. So first of all, there's a denial and a minimization of incidents. There may be an increase in hostile self-talk. You start getting angry. You may express some intimidating body language. You may spread your legs, puff your chest out, start talking more loud. And here you may experience more frequent and intense anger. Okay, and then as things escalate, we finally hit the explosion phase, where we exhibit violence, verbal aggression, uncontrollable discharge of tension, and there's major destructiveness. People often say, "I blacked out during this phase. I can't remember anything," and that can certainly happen. But so let's think of this explosion phase. There's all levels of explosion phase. The worst is when we resort to violence toward other people. And then secondly, of course, destroying property and things like that. So, and remember that violence can be physical. It can also be emotional. So that's certainly the most destructive. And then after the explosion phase, you have the post-explosion phase, where here it's really the consequence to the explosion phase and the escalation phase. So things like jail, termination from a program or service, financial costs, loss of family or loved ones, guilt, shame, depression, worry, all the psychological consequences of the anger. So interesting. This comes from The Cycle of Violence by Dr. Lenore Walker, who is a professor where I went to, where I earned my psychology degrees in graduate school. So at Nova Southeastern, and this comes from the battered woman, from battered woman syndrome work that she had done. All right, so here we are. We're going to dissect a little further. So the escalation phase is full of negative potential. We encounter events every day that could lead to an escalation of anger. The goal is to keep our anger in the escalation phase and keep that potential from being filled so that the explosion and post-explosion phases don't occur. But how? Well, we got to use the cues you've learned to identify when your anger is escalating. That's why it's really important. We're going through that sequence. There's an event, and then we have cues, right? We have to become aware of what cues we're having. Use specific strategies to try and avoid the explosion phase. But how do you know if you've reached the explosion phase? Well, here's the explosion phase. The explosion phase is characterized as completely losing control of your anger, which leads to negative repercussions. So this sounds similar to a 10 on the anger meter. So that's true. It's when we cross over the line. Use the anger meter to scale the escalation and explosion phases. A 1 to 9 correlates with the escalation phase, while a 10 correlates with the explosion phase. And the goal is to avoid an explosion and break the cycle of aggression. So the post-explosion phase. This phase is caused by the explosion phase every time and is known for its negative repercussions. So again, jail, loss of family, termination from a program, termination from work, feelings of guilt, shame, depression, all those psychological symptoms. If we successfully avoid the explosion phase, there will not be any negative repercussions or a post-explosion phase. All right? So let's talk about an additional strategy that can be practiced daily in addition to your deep breathing. And this is called muscle relaxation or progressive muscle relaxation. Psychologists know this as PMR. But it is a relaxation technique that is designed to help you notice when there is tension in different parts of your body. But the way that you learn how to do this exercise is by progressively moving to different parts of your body and tensing them, each one, for a few seconds, and then on the exhalation of your breath to release slowly the tension. So, for example, you squeeze a fist tightly for a few seconds, and then you exhale and also release the tension in your fist. And then what you do, like say you're squeezing your right fist first, you notice how much more relaxed your right fist is compared to your left fist. Just as a way to better know the body and better learn what tension feels like in different parts of your body. So after you get very good at progressive muscle relaxation, you don't necessarily have to run through all the sections of your body and all your muscles, but you're able to just identify where the tension is, and then you squeeze that muscle area, maybe the back of the upper portion of your back, where your shoulders are. You squeeze. If you notice it being tense, squeeze a little bit more, and then relax and feel the relaxation. So, but I want you to practice this as you're going through this program. I want you to practice it daily and progressively. So let's quickly run through this. So I want you to start by going through the breathing exercise that we learned in the last session. Remember, focus on your breathing. Slowly, deeply breathe in and out. Remember, in through your nose, out through your mouth. 3 or 4 seconds in, pause for 2, exhale slowly, 3 or 4 seconds, and then pause for 2. And remember, we're filling up our belly and filling up our lungs with air at the same time. And now what I want you to do is focus your attention on your hands and clench your fists tightly. So we're going to do both. Ready? Tightly, 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 squeeze, and then slowly release. And I want you to notice the dramatic difference now between the tension with your fists, when they were tense, and then now how relaxed they are. And what I want you to do is repeat this cycle. I want you to pause this recording, and I want you to repeat this concept with all of the muscles in your body one at a time, even the muscles in your face and around your ears. And certainly when you're around your face and your ears and your head, when you're tightening those muscles, you squint your eyes, purse your lips, you squeeze tightly and let it go. But then when you move through the other parts of the body, you can start with your left bicep, and then your right bicep, and your left shoulder, right shoulder, mid shoulders, your abdomen, and then you move down to the buttocks region, and your thighs, your calves. You can go left to right or both at the same time, and then do your feet and your toes as well. But you will find this to be very relaxing. So I do want you to pause, and I want you to practice this on your own. Okay, welcome back to session 4. Now I have some homework assignments for you to do over the next few days or the next week. Before we get into your homework, though, I want you to write down the 3 phases of the aggression cycle by memory. And if you need to review the course material, you certainly can. Alright, now what I want you to do for the actual homework exercises, I want you to begin to add progressive muscle relaxation to your breathing exercise and perform this exercise for 5 minutes per day. Okay, while you're doing this program, and hopefully after. And also during the days over the next few days, when you notice being triggered or cued by stress or anger, I want you to scan your body for any tension in addition to your breathing. And if there's any tension, I want you to tighten those muscles slightly. Just tighten slightly more for a few seconds, and then relax them and gently exhale. And I would also like you to continue to rate your anger level on the anger meter over the next 4 days. You have now completed session 4. I look forward to the next session.